And so I bid you good evening, one and all. Let's begin with prayer. Loving Father in heaven, this evening we come and we ask for your guidance and direction as we seek to understand the last day's message for these times. Be with us in all things, I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So here we go. This evening, we're looking at the book of Revelation, but I want you to consider it from an aspect that is not frequently discussed in Bible class, and that is the structure or the organization of the book of Revelation. And my goals are that after you would have seen its organization, you would see that God was sending a particular message to his church using a particular medium that they were familiar with in order to bring home several points. It is easy to focus on this segment or that segment of the book, but ancient literature around that time was written with a particular organization. So, for example, today when we write a book, the climax is at the end. That's the highlight of it, perhaps I can say. In literature during the time of Jesus and in the Old Testament era, the highlight or perhaps the most important segment that the author wanted you to focus on was in the center of the book. And we'll also see that that the beginning and the ending are similar. And so let's go right into it. So it's highly symbolical. We know that there are a lot of symbols, dragon, beast, etc. But it's also very structured. And Bible students observe a literary pattern known as a chiasm, where themes, as they say, are written in a particular pattern. You also see this in the Psalms. When you study the Psalms, you will see this same chiastic structure in the book. And when you begin to recognize it as you study, it will begin to open up your understanding and you begin to read it in a different manner. And so I'm going to share one with you. And this is coming from Psalms 47. Okay, so here we go. If you look on the left side of your screen, it is believed this was a psalm from the sons of Korah. Not all of them were written by David, by the way. About 74 were written by him, but not all of the psalms were written by him. Look at this structure here. You'll see A, B, C, A, B, C, and it keeps recurring. So A, the people clap. And then you see B, God is king. C, God is praised. B, God is king. A, the people gather. And notice at the end, this author put up in a section called D, he is greatly exalted. So let's look at it a little more. O, clap your hands, B and C. A, who's to do the clapping? All you peoples, shout to God with the voice of triumph. Now we come to B, that God is king. A deals with people, and that continues here, although not always. For the Lord Most High is what? Awesome. He is a great king, still talking about God, and where his territory over all the earth. He will subdue. Now there's a change. This time B deals with the people. Who will he subdue? The people underneath us. He will subdue When we come back here, that's A, B, C. Now let's see B, all the nations, B, all the peoples, C, under our feet, C, underneath us, A, he will choose, B, our inheritance for us, then B, the excellence of Jacob, C, whom he loves. And so you begin to see this repetition quite often in the Psalms. Let's try another one and see at random. This is the psalm. It was set to this musical tune, the day of the dawn, whatever that sounded like. Why is there no answer from God? My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? Same concept, forsaking, helping. B, from the words of my groaning. A, oh my God, my God. B, I cry in the daytime. So here you see B deals with the emotions, how he felt as if he was abandoned. And then C, but you do not hear. Again, we go back to emotions as well as a timeline now in verse 2. And in the night season, and I'm not silent. So look at verse 2. B, you do not see, sorry, you do not hear. C, you're not silent. Let's look a little further before we go back into Revelation. B, you see here, in the night season. B, I'm not silent. Verse 3, A, you are holiness, the holiness of God. B, he inhabits the praises of Israel. A, our father trusted in you. They're both talking about God. They trusted, okay. B, and you delivered them. Here, B here, enthroned in the praises of Israel. B, you delivered them. B, A, they cried out to you. And B, the subject of A is God. Seems to be a shift here where the subject, I guess you can say it is still God because they trusted in God. Our fathers trusted in you, so they're similar, and it keeps going on and on. So let's go back into Revelation. So here we go. So as I said, it's highly symbolic. You have a lot of symbols where it talks about horns, animals, stars, lampstands. And then we looked at, it has a chiastic structure. In this case here, C is the center. And some would say the most important part of it, where the focus should be, where the author wants you to pay diligent attention. Now look at this next one. And this here is taken from Daniel chapter 9. The death of the Messiah, construction of the city, destruction of the city, time of the Messiah. Then you have Messiah's covenant, earthly sacrifice concluded. Then you have destruction of the city, construction of the city, and you begin to see certain patterns here. Atonement for the sin, everlasting righteousness. Construction, righteous society, make end of sins. Sealing of the vision and prophet. Let's go a little further. So it's a literary structure with reverse thematic order. As I said, emphasizes the central element. A, B, C, D here is the center. Then C, B, A. So let's look at an overview of the book of Revelation. The prologue and the epilogue, chapter 1 and 22, are similar in structure. Then you have the 7 churches in chapters 2 and 3. You have the 7 trumpets or 7 bowls, chapter 6 to 16. You have a cosmic conflict, which then deals with the crisis in heaven and which was carried out on earth. Then we come to the final judgment, 17 to 21. So notice here, seals, trumpets, bowls, etc., which is 6 to 16. However, the cosmic conflict is in the center. Let's look at it from another one. Prologue and letters to the churches, 1 to 3. That's A. But look here, new creation and epilogue, 21 and 22. The throne room and the seven seals, chapter 4 to chapter 8. And then we have, that's B, the fall of Babylon and final judgment. These here show God's sovereignty, how he has charge of the nation. When we look at the throne room in chapter 4 and praises in 5, then you have the seven seals, which come out in 6 and 7. But when we come down here, it talks about the fall of Babylon and the final judgment. So here you see God is sitting on his throne. Here he is giving an overview of the history of the earth and the seven seals. And a lot of these repeat. You have the seven seals, the seven trumpets, the seven churches, covering the same time span, but different emphasis. When we come here, that was B. You see the fall of Babylon and final judgment. So here God is warning and he's showing us what is to come, some of these things and how they would happen. But when we come back here, we see the fall of Babylon, the final judgment. Let's look at C. 7 trumpets and 2 witnesses. Now, when the trumpets were sounded, they have impacted 1/3 of the earth, etc., etc. 2 witnesses were told, go and testify again. C. The 7 bowls of wrath. These are universal. The 7 trumpets there, judgment only fell on 1/3. The 7 bowls cover all of the earth, all of humanity, so to speak. I glossed over this. Let me go back. You see the 7 trumpets and the 2 witnesses from chapter 8 through 11. When we come to D, which they say is the center, is the cosmic conflict. Chapter 12 deals with the vision of the woman with the moon and stars on her feet and on her head a crown of 12 stars. The moon and sun, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. We see the woman running into the desert where she has a place prepared of God for her. And then when we look further, well, 13 deals with the beast from the sea. Let me run through it. I'll do this share. So if you see it, I think it'll be better understood. So here's chapter 12, the woman, the child, and the dragon. Then we have 1 to 6, 7th, Satan thrown out of heaven. 13, the woman persecuted. I'm in Revelation chapter 12. Then 13, that's verse 13. Now we go into chapter 13, where John sees the beast from the sea. Sorry, but then we see the beast from the sea rising up. Then we see the beast from the earth rising up again, and they're both persecuting powers. And then we see the Lamb and the 144,000 who have overcome. So what you're looking at now is you see the beast from the sea, the beast from the earth who persecute the people of God, but it doesn't leave us there with a sense of despair and hopelessness. Rather, what we do see is the Lamb and the 144,000 who have overcame. The first time we encountered the Lamb was in chapter 6. Is it 6? So at 144,000. Yes. Where John is asked the question at the end of time, there are only 7 seals. There's this cosmic disturbance. Verse 12, 6 and 12 of Revelation. In the 6th seal, he says, there was a great earthquake. Sun became black as sackcloth of hair. The moon became like blood. Verse 13, the stars fell from heaven. Verse 14, the sky receded. And it says, or split apart as a scroll when it is rolled up. Every mountain and island moved out of the places. Kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, etc., etc. are hiding because they say, fall on us, hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has come. Who is able to stand? The answer to that question, who is able to stand, is found in chapter 7, where John sees the sealed people of Israel. So now, when we look at chapter 14, here we see the Lamb and the 144,000, but that they have overcome. So here we find this punishment, this destruction. The great day of Christ's wrath has come. The question is, who can stand? It says 144,000. Now we see the 144,000 standing on Mount Zion, having the Father's name written in their forehead, the voice from heaven, the voice of waters, etc. They're playing, they're rejoicing, they redeemed from the earth. This is the same 144,000 who John says would be able to stand. So let's go back to our slides. Now we're seeing the cosmic conflict, which I said is the center. So 12, we see the entrance of the woman. When we look at 13, we have the beast coming up out of the land, then the sea. And we see persecution. 14, we see things like the proclamation of the three angels' message and the reaping of the harvest, then the reaping of the grapes of wrath. So that's why we say when studying it, we have to ask ourselves, why was it structured in this way? What was the message? And the message was that there's a great cosmic conflict going on between the forces of good and the forces of evil. And it shows us how the church, the people of God, are caught in the middle of that conflict. And again, as you see, the center of the chiasm, the woman, the child, and the dragon, the beast from the sea and the earth, the Lamb and the 144,000, Revelation 14. Three angels' message, final harvest, central theme, Christ, victory. Now, let's look a little further. Sections A and A, corresponding. Christ among the churches, Christ dwells with his people. Revelation 1 to 3, you see Christ is walking up and down amidst the 7 golden lampstands. King James says candlesticks. It's best translated lampstands because you're looking at this whole imagery from the sanctuary. And he holds the stars of the ministers in his hand. But this is showing Christ walking there, and then it shows the church experiencing conflict. Chapters 2 and 3. The church is going through conflict and trouble and persecution and apostasy, etc. But when we come to Revelation chapter 21, here we see in 21, where it says, John saw all things made new. Look at verse 3. The tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them. They shall be his people. God himself shall be with them, and he shall be their God. When we look at Revelation chapter 3, I want to go back there briefly. First, Christ is walking in the midst of his churches. I remember Lorraine Duncan pointed this out in his sermon and hit me like a bolt of lightning. At the beginning, verse 12, 1 and 12, he is walking in the midst of the 7 lampstands. Now watch this. This is quite interesting. See if I can find it quickly. There we go. Yes, 3 and 14. Look at verse 20. He has moved from walking in and amongst the churches to verse 20. He's now standing at the door knocking. Say, hey, anybody home? Can you hear me? Please open the door. I want to come in and dine with you. How did he get outside the church? He was walking in the midst of the church. Now he is knocking and asking for permission to come back in. That's the conflict. But when we go to 21, what do we see? The tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself, look at how personalized this is. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And it talks about there'll be no more death, sorrow, crying, pain. Behold, I make all things new. Verse 7, he who overcomes shall inherit all things. I will be his God, he shall be my son. Then he sees the new Jerusalem, the names of the 12 tribes, children of Israel, and the people of God going in. And when studying Revelation, also remember the background. Verse 22 says, 21, 22, John says he saw no temple in it, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. So God is dwelling in the midst of his people. First, we see him walking in and amongst the candlesticks, which was found in the Old Testament sanctuary. Now that is gone. There's no need for temple because God himself is with his people. So let's go back to our slides. Corresponding sections B, the seals are open, which is partial judgment. But then in the next one, when Babylon falls, is the final judgment. So they correspond. And then we come to C. The trumpet judgment's warning. As I said, the trumpets only affect 1/3 of the human race. But the bowl judgment is universal, affects all of the persons on earth, except for those who are redeemed. Thought I'd put in, okay, I put it in the next slide. An author, something, the shofar, the ram's horn, that was the trumpet they would have used. They used it to sound the alarm very often. If an enemy was attacking, the watchman would take the shofar and blow it, and that would sound the alarm. So the center reveals spiritual warfare, emphasizes the Lamb's victory, shows unity and depth. So let's go back to where we started. In looking at the structure of Revelation, I'm going to go back to right here. Look at it. The center of Revelation is the cosmic conflict in heaven, which is lived out on earth in the midst of the people of God. And we see persecution in Revelation chapter 13, where we have the beast from the sea. The dragon receives worship because of the beast. He blasphemes God, his temple, his tabernacle. A beast comes up from the earth where he forces people, 13 and 16, Revelation 13, 16, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their forehead or in their hand, and you cannot buy or sell unless that is happening. And then, when we come to chapter 14, lest we despair, we see the 144,000 standing on Mount Zion. The first time they are introduced as those who are sealed with the seal of God. Now we see them, their father's name written on their forehead, and they have overcome. They're singing the song of harpists, the voice of many waters, the voice of loud thunder, the sound of harpists playing their harps. They sing a new song. And these were redeemed from the earth, who are not defiled with women. Verse 4, they are virgins. We're dealing with spiritual language again, or symbolic language. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. It is interesting that this section is placed here before the proclamation of the three angels' message, which are messages of warning and woe. So lest we get carried away and despondent about the trouble that is coming, God says, hey, stop, pause, pay attention. My people will overcome. My people will be victorious. And that's what we're seeing here. The three angels' message says the message is going out to all the world, verses 6, 7, and 8. The second angel follows, talking about Babylon is fallen. The third angel warns against worshiping the beast's image, receiving his mark, and how those who receive the mark of the beast will experience the wrath of God, poured out full strength. But then look at verse 12. Again, it's a message of hope. Those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. John shows to his readers or his listeners, because one person would read, everyone else would listen, that there are those who will overcome, lest they be burdened down with sorrow, fear, etc. And even though some would die, in verse 13, they die in the Lord. And they're called blessed. They rest from their labors and their works follow them. And then we see this reaping of earth's harvest. And then there's the reaping of the grapes of wrath. Let's look at something. There's reaping, harvest, grapes of wrath. When you look at 6 to 13, there's the warning, 6 to 12, let's say, which is a warning, three angels sounding their message. And then before that warning, and after that warning, before the warning, we see the 144,000 are victorious. After talking about reaping the grapes of wrath, and the grapes of wrath are put into the winepress of the wrath of God, where they're trampled, showing God has the victory. He shows at the beginning, the 144,000 are victorious, and then at the ending is showing that he is trampling out the grapes of wrath, showing again that he is victorious. But even before we reach the grapes of wrath where the wicked are punished, he shows the righteous that they are rewarded. And so that's what these understanding the structure of the book, when you begin to study it from that standpoint, lessons start to come out. Another thing I would point out is look for meanings in words. What am I talking about? I've done a study on this before, but it bears repeating. I'm running a study on crown. So Revelation chapter 2 and verse 10, this is where you have a Bible concordance, you have Bible software like I'm using that are free, etc. Revelation 2 and 10, do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you in prison that you may be tested. You will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you what? The crown of life. A circular arrangement of flowers, leaves, or twigs, often used as decoration or symbols. It could signify victory, honor, celebration. It's the Greek word Stephanos. If you look at the very bottom of your screen, you're going to see some Greek letters there. Stephanos. Those are the Greek letters there. Let's look at another one, 3 and 11. Hold fast what you have, that no one may take your crown. If you look again, you will see Stephanos right at the center of this little, all these Greek characters and whatever at the bottom of the screen. Same Greek word, Stephanos, 4 and 4. Look at it again, Stephanos, the crown of victory. It would also be given to athletes who competed at the ancient Olympians. You came first in the race. Paul says you receive a crown, but it's perishable. 4 and 10. The 24 elders fall down before him who sit on the throne, worship him who lives forever and ever, and cast their what? Stephanos before the throne. 6 and 2. And I looked, and behold, the white horse. He who sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went conquering and to conquer. So under the first seal, we see if we say this is the church went conquering and to conquer, but the church had a crown of victory. The Stephanos, 9 and 7. Shape of the locusts were like horses prepared on for battle. On their head were crowns of something like gold, but still, John chooses to use the Stephanos. Interesting. 13 and 1. Watch this. The beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 diademata. That's the royal crown. The royal crown, different word there. Watch 14 and 14. A white cloud, and on the cloud sat one like, I'm missing something. Let me see. Okay. The Son of Man, and what does he have on his head? The Stephanos. The beast coming up out of the sea has the royal crown. The Son of Man here has the Stephanos. I'm missing something, so I'm going to change to, there we go. Revelation 12 and 1. No, I'm looking for something. Give me a second. 12 and 3. This is what I was looking for. A great red dragon having 7 horns, 10 horns, and on each of his head he has the diadematos, the royal crown. This is the great red dragon representing Satan. 13 and 1. The beast rising up out of the sea, 7 heads, 10 horns, and 10 crowns. The great red dragon had 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns for each of his head. The beast coming up out of the sea has 7 heads, 10 horns, just like the dragon, but on his horns, there are 10 crowns, the royal crown. That's 13 and 1. 14 and 4. Son of Man has the Stephanos on his head, the crown of victory. Now, the beast had 7 crowns. So the dragon had 7 crowns. The beast had 10 crowns, 1 for each horn instead of 1 for each head. When we come to 19 and verse 12, let me give you the context. Verse 11, I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he doth judge and make war. His eyes were like a flame of fire. Does that sound familiar to Daniel? And on his head were what? Many crowns, diademata. Christ is the one wearing the royal crown. The beast, the dragon, had 7 crowns. The beast had 10. Under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, John concludes by saying that Christ has many crowns. There's no number put to it. In a sense, to show that he is the king, because his crowns have no number. John just says many crowns. Now, isn't that interesting? Polos, yes, many crowns. And that is the last time we find the word crown mentioned in the book of Revelation. Christ shows that, hey, he is the real McCoy because he has many crowns. It's as if the crowns are so numerous, John cannot number them. So whereas the impostors had 7 and 10 respectively, the true king, the true heir to the throne, simply has many. Too many to number, I dare say. And I wanted to share that with you. So you would begin to see the beauty of it. So let's go back. Now, well, before I do that, okay, yes, the information came from Revelation and the end of all things. G.K. Beale, the Book of Revelation. Buchan, Theology of Revelation. Fiorenza, Justice and Judgment. And I did a study sometime back showing you how to use artificial intelligence to study the Bible. Well, guess what? Some persons question it. These slides were self-generated, but I told it to generate the slides. I told it what I wanted. Give me a chiastic structure. I knew it was there. I have a book on it, I'll show you. But it quickly generated them using those. I could have told it to expand its search and look in certain areas, but this was sufficient. If you talk to Pauline, he would tell you Revelation 14, I think he says is the actual center of the book of Revelation. And different Bible students come up with different answers. But they all can pretty much conclude that around 12 to 14 is actually the center of Revelation. So then, the question is, how does chiasm affect your interpretation of Revelation when you look at the book and study it from that aspect, where you can see the entire thing as a whole, and then you see how all the parts fit together? So a chiastic structure would be like a greater than sign. Imagine a triangle turned on its side with the top pointing to the right. So here you have the base, and then you have the two sides. Oh, base to my left, and a side going this way, the next one going up that way. A chiastic structure, the greater than sign in mathematics. And the center is the focal point. I shouldn't say most important, the focal point of the literature, as I showed you with the Psalms. The center is where the reader is to direct their attention. What are your thoughts on what I've shared so far? Type it in the chat, send me a WhatsApp message, and those on YouTube, you can do the same thing. And let me know what your thoughts are. Or you can open your microphone. Just want to make sure
Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Pastor, what's the difference between the royal crown and the other crown? What's the difference?
The royal crown would have normally been worn by kings, emperors, etc. The other one, that's a diadem or diademata. Some Bible versions bring that out. They don't use crown, they say diadem. The other one, it could have been worn by a head of state, but is usually reserved for persons in victory. And so you have persons who ran in the Olympic Games, etc. They got what they call the Stephanos. So let me see if I can give you an idea what I'm talking about. I'm going to share something with you. Paul says, you'll receive a crown of life. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, James 1:12. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive what? The crown of life. That's a Stephanos. So that's what we receive, and that's the only other place you can find it that I've seen in the New Testament, where it is the crown of life, James 1:12. But the royal crown, diademata, is usually reserved for God. And that's pretty much the difference there, especially in the book of Revelation, where it is found. Because if I was to just type in, I'll share this with you in a moment, crown. Let me see. I'll share the screen again. There we go. I'm going to pull them up. Stephanos. Stephanos. Bible writers say in particular, 19 and 5, wearing the Stephanos. Paul says, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible Stephanos. Philippians 4, dearly beloved, therefore my brethren, dearly beloved and longed for, my joy and my Stephanos crown. 1 Thessalonians, our hope, for what is our hope or joy or crown? And if a man also strive for masteries, yet is he not crowned? Same thing there, unless he strive lawfully. I have kept the faith, henceforth there is laid up for me a Stephanos, the crown of life, not the royal crown. Hebrews 2, Jesus was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor. Even here, because he's talking maybe with the victory of Christ, he chooses to use the word Stephanos, the Greek word. He shall receive the crown of life. Blessed is the man that endures temptation. When he is tried, he'll receive the crown of life. 1 Peter 5:4, the chief shepherd shall appear. You shall receive the Stephanos. And then we go into Revelation. And as I've shown you, all of these passages here are talking about Stephanos. 24 elders have the crown of victory, and they cast their crowns, which is the crown of victory, 6 and 2. I had made mention of that already. 9 and 7, we've already looked at these. 12 and 3. The great red dragon, however, has the diademata, the royal crown. The beast coming up out of the sea has the royal crown. As I say, these are usurpers. 14. Son of Man having a golden crown, even though he says it's a golden crown, but he still chooses to use the word Stephanos. It is not until 19 and 12, at the ending of it all, when he judges and makes war, his eyes like a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, that John chooses to change and makes mention that Christ is wearing the royal crown. So that's the difference there. One basically symbolizes victory. The other one symbolizes royalty. Any other questions? Okay. I'm looking to see if anyone sent. Okay, no messages. So let's close with prayer in that case. Father, thank you so much this evening for the opportunity to study your word. I ask, dear Lord, that your spirit would continue to guide us, that as we study this most important book for the end of time, dear God, that our minds and our hearts would continue to be enlightened and as a result transformed from who we are to who you would have us to be. Bless us this day, I ask, in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Same time next week, online or in person at the Maranatha Church Fellowship Hall. That's where we're presently meeting. You can come on down and sit in the audience, or you can come online and share the link. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.